The zombie franchise is repeating the same spin-off plot for the second time in 6 months with the release of The Walking Dead, Dead City Season 2. A few months have passed after the events of Dead City Season 1 when Maggie traded Negan to the Croat in exchange for Hershel's safe return. The true reason Negan was transported to Manhattan was made clear at the end of Dead City Season 1. The Dharma, one of its leaders, wanted him to assist her in bringing other survivors under her control. In the Season 2 opener, this immediately becomes a major plot point. However, the New Babylon Federation shows up at the bricks to recruit warriors for a scouting mission in Manhattan, while the Dharma is exploiting Negan for her personal benefit. Jinny offers to accompany Maggie, who ultimately joins the group to make sure no one else in her community is compelled to leave. It's uncertain at this time whether she will fulfill her commitment to save Negan. However, because of the identical plot it tells, it does make the primary characters of Dead City resemble those of The Walking Dead's other current offshoot. Daryl Dixon Season 2 found Daryl and Carol trapped between the Union of Hope and the Pouvoir, much like Negan and Maggie were between the Dharma and New Babylon. New Babylon's scouting expedition in Dead City is essentially their attempt to seize Manhattan in preparation for a larger invasion of the island later on. An impending battle results from their desire for the Dharma's technology, which converts zombies into methane. It's why they are recruiting warriors like Maggie, and why the Dharma wants Negan's help to reinforce the island by pulling its tribes together. Similarly, the characters of Daryl Dixon frequently support the Pouvoir or the Union of Hope. At first, this latter group is the lone bad group, seeking to take over all of France and killing Laurent, whom the Union considers to be their savior. But the Union also has radical plans for the youngster, including killing anyone who tries to stop them and nearly having him bitten by a zombie. Maggie and Negan's involvement in the war between their groups is a very similar idea to Daryl and Carol's attempt to flee both factions in Season 2. Maggie and Negan are actively involved in the struggle between the Dharma and New Babylon, which is the main distinction between Daryl Dixon and the conflict in Dead City. Negan's return to his former self while being imprisoned and coerced into his job actively aids the Dharma in her endeavor to control Manhattan. Maggie would probably fight the guys that kidnapped her son without hesitation because she already perceives them as a threat. Daryl and Carol, who never actively backed the Union or the Pouvoir, are a far cry from this. Maggie and Negan are on opposing sides of a developing battle, so it's feasible that their differences will really deepen. Although it would make sense for Negan to feel some resentment toward her for deceiving him in Season 1, Maggie still doesn't entirely trust him due to Glenn's passing. Despite the hostility of both factions involved, Dead City Season the 2nd of May wind up having the reverse effect as Daryl Dixon Season 2, with its key characters actively on opposing sides. The plot of Daryl Dixon Season 2 is partially repeated in The Walking Dead, Dead City. However, the protagonists may be actively working against each other when they reconnect in person. Maggie and Negan might end up working more actively for their factions, which could result in a heated argument when they cross paths again, unlike Daryl and Carol's departure from their evil organizations. The conflict between Dharma and New Babylon might be a metaphor for the two main characters' eventual reactions when they discover who they are really up against. Ginny's ability to speak again was verified in The Walking Dead, Dead City Season 2 Episode 1, which is a significant stride for her character given everything she's been through. In Season 1 of the show, Jinny was first shown as a small child that Negan was looking after. Despite initially having no relationship to other characters in Dead City, Maggie quickly consents to provide her with a home at the bricks in return for Negan's assistance in locating Hershel in Manhattan. However, she discreetly departs to follow the erstwhile antagonist in New York due to the strength of her bond with him. Jinny doesn't say anything in Season 1, however that changed in Season 2 of Dead City. She eventually spoke to Hershel and Maggie twice in the season opener, those fleeting exchanges proving that she can indeed communicate once more. Nevertheless, she still doesn't talk as much as other characters, and her remarks are more succinct and direct. Nevertheless, given its relationship to her larger plot in the series, Dead City Season 2, Episode 1 highlighted this as a significant shift in her character. Because of a horrific event in her past, Jinny remained silent throughout Dead City Season 1. As it turns out, this incident was the passing of her father, who was the one person she could trust in the post-apocalyptic world. Before the events of Season 1, she eventually learned that he was a zombie since he had been brutally murdered, traumatizing her. After learning where she lived, Negan began caring for her and developed an understanding of her selective muteness due to her history. She doesn't know at first, though, that Negan killed her father after he and 4 other men robbed and severely abused his wife, Annie. After learning about Jinny, he made the decision to begin caring for her in exchange for leaving her an orphan. But he never told her the truth, and they became so close that she went to Manhattan alone to look for him. Negan understood her silence while tending to her, in part because he was trying to atone for his actions and felt bad about them. Ginny doesn't say her first words until the very end of Dead City Season 1. She gives Negan a hug when she meets him, Maggie, and Peli in Manhattan. Negan informs her that she must return to the bricks with Peli while he stays to assist Maggie. She begins speaking to him and begins with the words, "I want you to." But he interrupts her, acknowledging at last that he killed her father. However, he provides no further explanation for why he intentionally creates a rift between them in order for her to return with Peli. For the remainder of Dead City Season 1, Jinny remains silent, but she voluntarily returns to the bricks. It is decided that Maggie will be caring for the young girl going forward after she returns with Hershel. Her new surroundings are also intended to help her recover from the loss of her father and the discovery that Negan was his murderer. The months between Seasons 1 and 2 demonstrate how much she has settled in, and she is now in the safest place she has been since before her father passed away. Jinny speaks a few sentences to Maggie and Hershel in the first episode of Dead City Season 2. Her few remarks demonstrate that Maggie has assisted her in starting to recover from the tragedy of her father's death, even though she isn't much more communicative than she was at the end of Season 1. She is returning to Manhattan, this time with Maggie and warriors from the New Babylon Federation, thus her narrative is far from ended. Although she has recently been more vocal, her character development is still ongoing in the program. Jinny is gradually beginning to recover from the grief of her father's murder and the anguish of discovering Negan killed him, as seen by her recent ability to speak more. It highlights how she has begun to recover at the bricks, but it also leaves room for more development as the series goes on. The Walking Dead, Dead City will have a greater opportunity to continue examining how much she will begin talking in the future now that she will be returning to Manhattan. Despite saving her son in The Walking Dead, Dead City, Maggie's journey appears even more gloomy after a brief scene from Power Equals Power and the foreboding conclusion of Season 1. Maggie should have had a bright future after being reunited with her son and moving back to the bricks, but the first episode of Season 2 revealed that her life was anything but ideal. Maggie and Hershel's relationship was still hampered by the resentment from Dead City Season 1's conclusion, and New Babylon created significant issues for the two of them as well as their community. The Walking Dead animosity between Maggie and Negan is still unsolved, which will undoubtedly be addressed in the next episodes. Even though Maggie faces some significant obstacles as a result of these issues, a subtly revealed scene near the conclusion of the most recent premiere suggests that things are worse than they appear. Given her experience in the zombie series, Lauren Cohen's character is probably capable of destroying New Babylon and mending her relationship with Negan. However, Hershel appears to be Maggie's largest obstacle because of an occurrence in Dead City Season 2 that implied he was acting entirely against his mother. Hershel confirms that he is defying Maggie's teachings when he throws a knife sideways in the last moments of Season 2, Episode 1. Power Equals Power begins with Hershel attempting to hunt a deer with a knife he is going to throw after the opening credits have rolled. He tries to toss it sideways at first, but Maggie persuades him to use an overhand method because it has more spin and is more precise. Hershel's mother encourages him despite the fact that he misses the deer, saying, "It's okay, you'll get it." Later in the episode, Hershel keeps trying this but struggles to master the technique. However, as Maggie departs for Manhattan, Hershel returns to his previous approach and successfully hits his target. The incident seems to be emblematic of Hershel's Season 2 plot, despite the fact that it is a little and seemingly unimportant occasion. Hershel is creating his own route, one that may not be a good one, instead of taking Maggie's advice and trying to become more like her. Maggie's main fear in The Walking Dead seemed to be the possibility of evil Negan returning, but it appears that making sure her kid doesn't go down the wrong path will be a far bigger worry in Dead City. Unfortunately, it appears that the situation will only worsen before improving. Finding a method that works for him might appear innocuous at first, but Hershel's disobedience foreshadows his rebellion against Maggie in Season 2 of Dead City. In addition to the fact that the trailer featured Hershel with the Dharma, he was already furious that Maggie had offered to join New Babylon's mission despite the fact that it was to safeguard the last bricks. He may wind up helping the baddies rather than his own mother, as evidenced by his photos at the end of the episode, which also show that he still has a connection to Manhattan. Thank you for viewing, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.